place to promote the growth of Tigres in English through analysis, discussions, interviews, and more. Welcome to the La U Times Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the La U Times Podcast. Back-to-back episodes after an emergency pod that we had last night. After the firing of Veljko Paunovic and the insertion of Guido Pizarro, our longtime captain, is now the head coach at Tigres. A new era begins during the season for us, and we're here back again to talk about it as well as much more and our upcoming match in CONCACAF. This is your host, Arnoldo, and I'm happy to bring on the rest of the crew. Alfred here in Houston. What's up, my friend? How are we tonight?
Very good. I'm not hungover from yesterday's celebration, but we're very happy to be here.
Love that. We'd love to hear that. Double O Nation. Edgar, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. Glad to be back with you guys. I haven't seen you guys in a very long time.
Yeah, it seems forever ago that we were recording. Lou, the famous Lou, back-to-back appearances. We're going to have to pay this man. How much does your contract value go up now?
How much are they playing Juninho over there, bro? Because I want like $1 more.
You got to catch it on this royalties, my friend. And lastly, Dennis Gartman Jr. What's up, my friend?
Dude, it's whatever Monkey Papas is giving to sponsor that show. So we gotta get it in contact with their reps in order to see what the.
Well, they're not our sponsors. You keep on contacting all these Costco brands.
Bro, I ain't contacted nobody. I'm just buying their product.
Bro, you just gotta use a picture of Lou and just be like, "Hey, here's my guy. He's famous. We're going on a bunch of podcasts. We just finished watching him on the Cincinnati soccer show. It was a fantastic show. I watched majority of it, and
it was good. Yeah,
keeping up with their team, great group of guys. And then Lou came on there, and they had a really good discussion. So we're looking forward to having one of their members also come on board and join our discussion tonight for our CONCACAF matchup. And so we'll start there. We got Mr. Jose Guerra in the house. How are we doing, Mr.
Good
Jose?
evening. How's everyone?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on and
thank you.
giving us a bunch of your time.
Not a problem. I'm happy to be here. Any information I can provide and discussions we can have, my pleasure, our pleasure at CST.
Absolutely. So why don't we start there? Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about the project you guys got going on. Seems that you guys are very well established, a very big community that spreads across multiple platforms and different types of shows. So we'd love to hear for our fan base that, that they're going up there and going to be watching the game tomorrow night.
Okay. Full disclosure, I've only recently joined the writing staff of CST, but I've been following CST for several years. In fact, I always tell them, especially the founders, they've been around for 10 years now, that when I discovered them, I thought, finally, I found a platform that actually knows football in this town in Cincinnati. So I've been very enthusiastically following them. I'm part of the writing staff now. Been on a couple of their shows as well. We have presence in Facebook, YouTube, X. We use, of course, StreamYard for some of our calls, internal calls more than anything. And we're trying very hard also to expand through Patreon too, with this Patreon platform. As you know, some of it is free, some of it is paid. So we're really trying hard this year to say, well, how can we expand beyond what we've done so far? Because I was talking to my wife, who is not a big soccer fan, but she's been to several FCC games, and she watches a lot of soccer because I watch a lot of soccer. She says I force her. So you don't have to be here.
That's part of the agreement, right?
But yeah. But one of her friends, who's a Nicaraguan, and she's a season ticket holder for FCC as well, she wasn't aware of CST. So this year, we're really trying hard to make us more visible, more present, and we're just tossing around a lot of ideas. But being on shows like yours, for example, also helps us, and hopefully it helps you as well. So that's, in a nutshell, what CST is. As you saw on the show, Luis, we have some great people there. I mean, Coach is just phenomenal in breaking down a game and all the little nuances. But everybody, Brian, Justin, I mean, there's just a whole lot of people that are incredibly knowledgeable about what's going on. Uh-oh.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a great show.
Hello.
It was very. You're still there. We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, but you can't see me, so I'm not sure what happened.
Maybe take yourself out of the stream and then come back and see if that.
Yeah, let me do that.
In the meantime, while he comes back, it was a great show, Lou. How did the contact come about? And tell us a little bit about that exploration as you got on their podcast tonight.
You know what's really interesting is that they reached out to me, and you know who recommended us was Rayados 90. That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Whoa.
What
our
the heck?
rivals from Rayados and neighbors in at Rayados 90 who, you know, obviously they have their own podcast and have their own community. So I thought that was interesting. It's funny how, you know, sometimes even though our communities don't necessarily overlap a lot, there's still, you know, they still view us, they still read some of our stuff, I guess, and so that was interesting how that came about.
You know, funny that you mentioned that. Over the last couple of days, I've come across some of their content. I don't follow them, and I think it's due, obviously, stating the obvious of the rivalry. But I think a collaboration is definitely due, especially if they're recommending us to other podcast platforms to expand the awareness of Liga MX, as well as the integration of the MLS with the Liga MX competitions. And so, great shout out to them for doing that for us. But back to Mr. Jose, you're back. Obviously, we have a big matchup tomorrow night in your house, your stadium, a big soccer city, more so a big soccer state. You guys,
Yes.
in the history, you guys have been very great fans and always been supportive as a whole fan base of the sport. And
Yes.
now you have one of the most recent and most newest clubs in MLS, and have had quite a bit of success
Yes.
through different ways. And I want to start there and just talk a little bit about the history that
Yeah.
you guys
No,
have
absolutely.
and what the sport means to the state of Ohio, and then
Yep.
obviously into Cincinnati.
Yes, well, I mean, the team has been around for 10 years. And by that, I mean, with its founding, it was announced in 2015 in August that there was going to be a professional soccer team in Cincinnati. Now, back then, we started in what's called the USL, kind of a lower tier league. There's no promotion or relegation in the United States, as you probably know. So we started there, spent a couple, 3 years, and we got MLS attention very quickly because we had this great run in our cup, the version of our cup, which is called the Lamar Hunt Open Cup Tournament. We went all the way to the semifinal. We were 15 minutes away from going to the final. I was at that game. We were ahead 2-0 against New York Red Bulls. But New York was relentless, and we were thinking, man, it's only a matter of time before they score now. And they scored 2 in the last 15 minutes, went into overtime, and then they beat us. But even the New York Red Bulls acknowledge that this is the best soccer fanhood that I have seen in all of MLS and all of America. So that got the attention of MLS. Eventually, we got into the league. Our first 3 years were very bad, to say the least. We were in dead last of 2 conferences. We have 2 conferences in MLS. Dead last for 3 years in a row, and we earned what is called the wooden spoon. It's not an official trophy, but the team that finishes dead last gets the symbolic wooden spoon. Hey, congratulations, you're dead last. So for 3 years in a row, and I'm a season ticket holder since there's season 2 in the USL. I went through all of that, but we were there. I mean, the stadiums, even though we were in dead last, the stadiums were full. We were enthusiastic, and eventually in 2022, they brought in Chris Albright as the general manager, and then Pat Noonan as the head coach, and immediately started turning things around. That year, we made it to the playoffs. We won the first playoff game, and then we went down to a very tough Philly team, 1-0 in Philadelphia. 2023, we won what's called the Supporter Shield, maximum number of points. And we were again, by the way, 15 minutes away from going to the final. And we lost against our arch rivals, the Columbus Crew. Very good team, by the way. Very, very good team. But they beat us here at home, which hurt even more. But Ohio has embraced both teams, Columbus, Cincinnati. The rivalry, of course, between the two, which is called Hell is Real, by the way, has just gained very, very much prominence. It's always a very tough, very passionate game. sometimes not very good games because both teams get a little cautious. But in general, Cincinnati has embraced FCC in a way that I never thought possible, by the way. I've been living here 40 years now. I live, by the way, I was born in Texas, then lived in Chicago, Mexico City. I have dual citizenship, Mexico, US. So my heart is Mexico when it comes to the World Cup. And I'm a Chivas fan, by the way. So when they announced a soccer team, okay, this is great. I said, but really, how much enthusiasm? It's been tremendous. I mean, it is just absolutely. And if you guys ever get a chance to come to a game, it is just a great ambiance within the stadium. So that's very quickly, very high level, the history of the team.
That's so awesome. And something that, stood out to me as, you guys have been notorious for breaking your own records in attendance at multiple stadiums.
Yes.
And you talk about the rivalry with Columbus. Would you say it's probably something similar that what we go through with between Tigres and Rayados,
Oh, I think so. Well, in fact, I'll tell you a quick story. I have friends in Mexico, obviously. And I was telling them that when we played against Monterrey last year, or 2 years ago, I forget when it was, in the same tournament, the friends I have are Tigres fans. It says, please beat these guys. Okay. We don't like them. Okay, whatever. So, yes, I would say that's probably right.
That's awesome. So, good story there. Good insight to what soccer means to you guys. But let's talk a little bit more in depth about the game. Obviously, big matchup for us. Big changes. Lou was talking about it on his podcast, on y'all's podcast. I'm sorry about the big coaching change between Paunovic, leaving the team in third place, and now our longtime captain Guido Pizarro taking over, and now there's such a big emotional spark there. What would seem a very stale season for us in terms of a system and play on the field. So, talk to me about what are some things that you're looking out for as you're preparing for this match as a fan and going into this game.
Well, certainly, as you probably heard on our podcast, we're concerned because we have a lot of new faces. Now, they're very quality players, but we've had already a brutal schedule. Between CONCACAF and MLS, it's just been game after game after game. So there are a lot of tired legs there. The team hasn't quite gelled. So, it doesn't take a lot for a very good team like Tigres to potentially disrupt what our style is, which is, playing from the back, building up, using more and more of our wing backs, which we didn't used to use, by the way. We always went through the center with Lucho Acosta, who's now in Dallas. But without him now, there seems to be a more concerted effort of playing through the wings. So we know we've got the talent, but the team hasn't gelled yet. The team is getting to know each other. Now we know about, and forgive my ignorance here, your center back. We read somewhere that he wins like 95% of his aerial duels. That's a real worry for us because, to be frank, we haven't been that good at protecting corners or set plays. We don't get scored a lot in those plays, but every time we have like a heart attack when it says, "Oh my God, what's going on? Why can't you guys clear the ball? And why are those guys winning the ball?" So we're concerned about that. Obviously, we're concerned about your attack, and you guys have been playing also for I believe 10 games you've had so far in the league. So regardless of the turmoil you've had in head coach and all that, you gelled as a team. Yes, you have some key injuries there. I mean, Gignac comes to mind, which, by the way, I was really looking forward to seeing him. So, unfortunately, I won't see him as a soccer fan. Fortunately, it's one less thing we need to worry about. But you're playing as a unit. We're not there as a unit. So our biggest concern is going to be how can we counteract that fluid game that you probably have already in place versus the fact that we're still dealing with integrating various styles, various personalities. And also, we have two key players out. Luca Orellano, Argentinian, who's been hurt now for several weeks, and he had a tremendous breakthrough year last year with us. And Matt Miazga, who is a tremendous center back, and he is, frankly, the leader. Yeah,
Linus is best friend.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little story if we have time about him, because I met Matt once, and mention that I was Mexican. Uh,
No, share it
but
now.
Matt
I
is
want to know now.
tremendous. I'll tell you this now. So a couple years ago, CSD had a live show in one of the microbreweries. Cincinnati has a lot of microbreweries, by the way. Very good, all of them. And they mentioned they would have a couple of players there. I didn't know who, but I went, and they had Matt Miazga and our goalie, Roman Celentano. So, they got interviewed there, and then they went back into a room and said, well, Matt and Roman are going to be there if you want to talk to them. So I decided, yeah, I want to talk to them. So Roman and I had a nice chat, and he's a great guy. He looks like he's 18 years old, by the way, a really nice guy, very accessible. Got to Matt. We had a really good conversation with Matt. Thanks to your presence here, the backline in Cincinnati is now finally very good because it wasn't up to that point. Matt put order, he put leadership, and obviously skill sets. It's, oh, well, thank you. So no, you have made a huge difference. By the way, I'm Mexican. And he was almost like shrinking there. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. It's part of the game. But inside, I thought, okay, if I made you just a little bit uncomfortable, that was worth it. But he's a great player and very accessible too. So we're missing him and we're missing Orellano. So that's going to be tough.
There's one thing that you mentioned that I was sort of stuck on was the fact that, you mentioned that our team has been playing about 10 games together. It's sort of the topic, this year or this time of the year when the CONCACAF gets going and you guys are starting the season. We're already have gotten a good majority of our games out the way. So we're in better form, at least player wise. Thoughts on that? And then obviously comparing it now, opposite side of the argument when the Leagues Cups comes around in the summer.
Yeah, well, that's a great point because, whenever people on this side over here in the U.S. and I'm assuming, are you all in the U.S. by the way? Okay, so here in the U.S., people will say, "Oh yeah, MLS, we always win the Leagues Cup." Says yes, but we always catch Liga MX at the beginning of their season, so they are at a natural disadvantage. Plus, they have to travel to the U.S. So it's playing outside your home. It's playing with teammates around you that you haven't quite gelled because you just started the season. So I think that's a disadvantage for Liga MX and the Leagues Cup. The other way around now, I would say, okay, now it's a disadvantage for us in MLS because we're just starting the season. But again, with all the caveats that I have said, FCC has a lot of new players. We're just starting. We're starting to gel. We don't have two key players on there. We're tired because we already played a lot of games, traveling to Honduras and coming back playing, then going to Philly and absolutely getting demolished on Saturday. It was a very frustrating game for us. So, I think at the moment, it may seem on paper that we're at a disadvantage. Now, FCC tends to rise to the occasion, but there's just so many variables that, everybody's approaching this game as we have our work cut out for with Tigres, and then going to play in El Volcán.
Tough.
Whoa, that's going to be really tough. Now, when Leagues Cup comes around, yes, sure, the tables will be turned. But right now, worrying about tomorrow's game, we're we're going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Any matchups that you see, Jose, that might interest the fans that you think, since he maybe has an advantage over us?
I think, let's start with the back line. The back line is still a little shaky because we just don't have Matt there. But we have this kid that we got from South America, Gilberto Flores, who has turned out to be a tremendous surprise. Now, he, like practically every other player on Saturday, had a bad game. They all had bad games except for one guy that I will talk about. But he's been a very pleasant surprise. He's been solid. He's been creative. He's been relentless running up and down the field, even though he's played center back. So I think watching how Gilberto performs against your front line is going to be interesting. Now, Miles Robinson, he is a national team player, has been called up several times. And when he has a good game, he is absolutely extraordinary. So that's another one to watch. So I would say those two center backs are two to watch. Now, in the midfield, we have a really good defensive midfielder in Obi Wobadal. The guy is just absolutely a wall there. He rarely loses plays. And when he advances the ball, which he doesn't do a lot, by the way, He's very good. He's very accurate. So getting past Obi, I think, is going to be one of the challenges also that Tigres will have. Now, he's going to be tired too, by the way. And I'm not giving the game away here because everybody knows we just played a game on Saturday. We traveled to Philadelphia, then had to come back here. So Obi is probably tired too. But he is somebody that you should watch. Now, one guy that last year didn't do a lot because Lucho Acosta was there is, Pavel Buka. Pavel, all of a sudden, has turned into a very pleasant surprise. Last year, he didn't do much, but now we're thinking that it was because Acosta was there. And Acosta really didn't trust him, didn't let him do it, and everything went through Acosta. I mean, the style of play was, let's make sure we get the ball to Lucho, and then he'll do some magic. And he usually did. But now, without him, other players are getting involved. And Pavel is starting to show streaks that we saw last year of creativity, of disrupting play, of dribbling, of doing these wonderful, vertical passes. So I think Pavel is somebody that you guys should watch as well, because if he starts being as creative as we've seen him, it could spell problems for your back line or your midfield. And at the front, well, you all know about Denki and Evander. Those guys will probably be a very dynamic duo, but they're still getting used to each other. Denki has shown just great ball control in terms of not giving it away, moving in small spaces, being there at the right time in the box. But he still needs to get accustomed to the system and also to Evander. Now, Evander has also shown great flashes of creativity, of play creation, not so much on the disruptive side, although he has done some of that, but he was brought in here to be the creative. And we're starting to see some of that. We saw it obviously with Honduras, and with all due respect to Motagua, I mean, it wasn't a true test of Cincinnati's abilities, but we saw a lot of Evander in that play, Denki as well. So I kind of went up and down the field, midfield, back line, we think we have two very solid players there. Midfield, we have Obi as a defensive midfielder, Buka as a creative, and then you have, of course, Denki and Evander. Now, I didn't talk a lot about our goalie, by the way. Roman Celentano, great shot stopper. And when he's on, it's very difficult to score against. But he also depends on his back line a lot, like any goalie, right? He's young, he's athletic. His ball distribution is not very good still. We're still working on that. So when he has to clear the ball, usually we're kind of praying, okay, let's hope it lands on one of our players because he's not that good on that yet. He's young. We think he will learn. But when he's on, it's really difficult to score against him.
Denke is coming in red hot, unlike our center forward who's in a scoring slump. So that'll be interesting as well to see how that plays out.
Hey, the positive thing is we got a forward now. We didn't have a forward for a few games, so we got him back, and at least we got that in the lineup going. I'm gonna toss it over to Dennis. Dennis is our usual MLS correspondent. It keeps us up to date with what's going on in the MLS. So I'm gonna throw it over to him, see if he's got any questions for you.
I've got two. I want to focus on Evander specifically.
Mhm.
He's a player that for Tigres fans may be somewhat familiar. In the first game of League Cup in 2023, which Arnoldo and I were actually there in person in Portland, he scored a free kick golazo, and at that moment I thought, oh, this guy's actually pretty good. Tell me, I know it's a very small sample size, but I know you kind of hit on it. I just want you to expand on it a little bit more. How is the difference between him and Acosta been for you guys so far, and how do you expect the future with him playing that sort of like number 10, maybe like a second striker sometimes? Yep. How do you expect that to happen? And then tell me about DeAndre Yedlin's role in this team, because it feels like to me, ever since he got traded from Miami last year, that he's been super, super important into like providing leadership, providing playmaking, especially now, like you just mentioned, with Acosta being gone, him providing service through the wings. Tell me a little bit more about him and just his role on the team.
In terms of Evander, I mean, obviously we brought him in here because we were lacking a creative. I mean, once Lucha was gone, it's okay, who are we going to get? And there were all kinds of rumors, by the way, as to Evander or this or that. And it really didn't happen until the very last moment. mean, we don't know what was going to happen with Lucho. Is he going to Argentina? Is he going someplace else? Then the Dallas rumors started. And when that all happened, then everything fell into place. Now, with Evander, we're seeing obviously not a Lucho. To me, Lucho right now, other than Messi, is the best player in MLS. And I think he's going to make a huge difference in Dallas once he gets used to that system. In fact, he scored on Saturday. So to me, he's not a Lucho replacement in the sense that Lucho could produce what we call magic. And if the game was on the line and all of a sudden Lucha took the team on his shoulders, things could happen. Not all the time, but I saw him really just take a game and say, okay, we're behind it. We're going to take this and we're going to either tie this or win it. We don't see Evander as that type. However, we do see Evander as someone who is going to be, I don't like the word selfish, but someone who's going to distribute the ball better. Who's going to think, yes, I can dribble through this, but I think we have a better chance if I, pass this to either my upcoming wingback over here, or my forward, or Denki, or Kubo, whoever's at the front. So we see him as more of a creative, but somebody who's going to be integrating the other players into a given play. That he's not going to think, I can solve this by myself and try it like Lucha used to do. Again, Lucha was very good. And thanks to Lucha, by the way, I can't say this enough, Cincinnati reached the heights it did because he was an instrumental player in getting us there, especially on the Supporter Shield side when he was MVP. Evander, yes, we want him to be creative, but also the thought is, okay, this is a guy who can now help distribute play in other ways that Lucha, for whatever reason, whether he didn't trust the people or he felt he could solve the game by himself, just wasn't happening last year, especially last year. Lucha, to me, had a down year. He was injured, so let's talk about, but he didn't have the cast of characters that he had in 2023 with Brandon Vasquez, with Brenner, the Brazilian, Barreal. I mean, he had a great cast around him. And for reasons that you all know, MLS turns out there's a lot of roster rotation. So that's what happened to Cincinnati. And Lucho apparently was not happy. Probably didn't trust the guys they put around him. So he had a bit of a down year. And that probably contributed for him leaving, not being happy. But be that as it may, again, great player. To me, the best player in MLS beyond Messi. And we're happy that he landed somewhere that he can hopefully continue his career. On our side, again, we expect Evander to be that creative, but also to distribute the ball more, to integrate the rest of the team. So that's Evander. And he's shown flashes also of his individual dribbling skills, which have been phenomenal. It's just, again, the team is still gelling. The system is not quite in place. But when we played against New York Red Bulls in our season opener, there were plays he made that, just a couple of more inches, and the score would have been not just 1-0, maybe 3 or 4-0. So he's showing that. So that's Evander. Yedlin, yes, has been a very important piece. And he brings certain kind of leadership. And I say that a little cautiously because he is certainly not a Matt Miazga when it comes to the leadership aspect. I mean, Matt, we figured out Matt was the general back there. And for any of us who have, followed leaders, we say, oh, this guy, I will follow this individual to the ends of the earth. You need to be obviously competent in what you do. You need to integrate the people around you. You need to provide them vision, direction, but also you need to put a little bit of fear. So if I mess this up, Matt's going to get in my face. And Matt provides that. I don't think Yedlin provides that. He's a good leader. He's a solid leader. He moves up the right band fairly well. But let's face it, I mean, he is getting up there in age in terms of soccer. So a lot of us don't think that he can play 90 minutes for 30 plus games, plus, 2 other tournaments, CONCACAF and then Leagues Cup. But certainly he is a very valuable member in terms of the seniority, the experience, the calm that he can provide back there, and the leadership. Different kind of leadership than Matt provides, by the way. Hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Edgar, Alfred, Lou, you guys got any questions for Mr. Jose?
I do. It's kind of a two-part question, Jose. I was lucky enough to be in Columbus last year when we had our match against Columbus. Great stadium, great atmosphere.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
absolutely.
sure, obviously, they're two very close cities, and pretty sure
Yes.
that the people are just as friendly as what we met over there in Columbus.
Oh yeah.
Back then, I believe we did get a good couple of thousand people in the stadium spread throughout the stadium. So we were able to make our presence felt and be
Outstanding.
loud.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be the case this time
Hmm.
around. I don't see, or we haven't heard a lot of people are going to be making the trip.
That's too bad.
So my question is related to what you mentioned earlier, as far as with the fan base, and the importance of away goals in the two-leg matches. Obviously, you may know that at El Volcan, we have a streak. We are practically unbeaten against international rivals.
Yes.
So we definitely rely a lot on our local matches, on our second leg games,
Mhm.
because we have the support of the fan base, because it's going to be a packed stadium, and now with Guido Pizarro being the new coach, it brings a completely change in the atmosphere
Oh,
in a
sure.
positive way for our team.
Hmm.
So taking it back to Cincinnati, do you expect to have a good showing tomorrow from your fan base? And is it in the plan to obviously make sure that you don't accept any goals tomorrow?
Sure. Um, we always have good attendance at our games. Now, obviously, some games like against Columbus, getting tickets is, yeah, you can get them if you're willing to pay $400, $500. And forget it. If Messi comes here, be ready to pay through the nose. Tomorrow, we expect a good crowd. However, based on the prices that I've seen, which keep going down, by the way, probably not as big as we would have liked. One of the things is it's during the week and it's at 6:30 p.m. So, there's going to be a lot of people that are either getting out of work or you have to deal with family issues, dinner, all of that. And we have seen that happen before during weekday games, even league games for that matter. So we're hoping for a good crowd. It's probably not going to be sold out like usual. Because again, if pricing is any indication, there's still a lot of tickets available. How many I don't know, but I've been watching it just out of curiosity, and the prices just keep going down. Even for the primo sections, by the way, in the stadium, which would only go for $200-$300, they're like the $70-$80 and probably falling. So from that perspective, crowd probably won't be as important this time. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but there will be a good crowd. I mean, there's always a good crowd at any FCC game. In terms of the result, and I've been banging away at this in the FCC Facebook page and also at CST. Those guys, we have got to get a good result, and by good result, I mean at least 2-0, and no away goals. If we don't do that, we're going to be in deep trouble because playing at El Volcan with the crowd there that I've seen on TV, it's not going to be easy. And they're going to come out motivated also. I mean, they're going to be motivated tomorrow because of their new coach, trying to prove a point. And it's that new coach bump. But even more so when playing in El Volcan, where people are going to want to see, okay. And I'm assuming you have a league game in between, by the way. Is that?
Friday.
Yeah,
Yep.
Friday. So your fans will get a chance to see him, the new coach, on Friday. And then, of course, next week with FCC. So we're hoping, for at least a 2-0. Say if we don't win 2-0, guy, at least it's going to be a really steep climb. So that's kind of the general discussion we've been having. Just also aside, there are some fans here in Cincinnati who really don't understand Liga MX because MLS always seems to take advantage of Liga MX and the League Cup. Oh, this should be easy. It was no, we're just starting. They're an established team. They just had a change in coach, by the way, as well, who apparently, everybody likes, and the players are going to be out to prove something. And they've been playing longer than we have in league-wise. So, yeah, I'm trying to educate some of the people here. No, it is not going to be an easy game, and we're tired as well as you guys. I mean, both teams are going to be tired.
Absolutely. Guys, you guys got any question? Edgar, Lou?
Jose, for Liga MX fans that maybe are looking for an MLS team to support and kind of watch and follow, what's your pitch? What makes Cincinnati FC special?
Well, First of all, we have a very passionate fan base. I mean, the people who follow FCC, like myself, I mean, we follow them not just because of the results, because we had great results in the last 2, 3 years, but because the organization as a whole, from the owners to the management to the coaches and the players, they make an extra special effort of reaching out to the community, saying, "We're here. We're not just here to just win trophies. We're here to get to know you as a community. We're here to interact with you. We're here to tell you that we are here in Cincinnati supporting, yes, the club, but supporting also the city as a whole." For example, just a couple of months or maybe less, it was announced that FCC had, the organization FCC had gained approval for this massive development of retail and apartments and other things right next to the stadium to continue helping that zone of the city, which had been depressed economically speaking. So it's yes, it's the results, it's the fact that players are committed to winning, management is committing to winning, but also because we as an organization, and I say we because as part of CSD, I consider myself part of that, part of FCC too. We try to reach out to the community and say, we want to get to know you. We want you to be a part of this, not just because of the trophy, but because of the organization itself. And because we're winning too.
Sounds fantastic.
Awesome. Well, guys, anything else you guys want to add?
One quick question for me. So,
Yeah.
Tigres prides themselves in, trying to have a presence in every game, regardless of where it's being played.
Yep.
Are there any fans from Cincinnati that plan on making the trip to Monterrey for the second game?
I have not heard of anybody. Certainly, I can't make it, unfortunately, because of other commitments and schedules and whatnot. I haven't heard of anybody yet. And we have a CST chat that we barely touched on the subject, so that I know of, no. But, the fan base, I mean, we've seen our fans travel to Seattle, which is quite a ways from here. So I wouldn't be surprised if some show up, but I don't think we're going to see large numbers of fans, unfortunately.
Cool.
If they do travel, we'll say we're a very friendly fan base,
Yes.
Have them reach out to our fans.
Absolutely.
We're always looking to make connections.
Well, they're norteños, right?
Yeah.
And get the chicharrones.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, my
With the
grandfather
salsa.
was from Piedras Negras, Coahuila.
Oh, nice.
Northern.
Ah.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. So I have some northern blood in me, I guess.
Nice.
Some
That's awesome.
norteño.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jose. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Pleasure was mine, guys. Really, thank you so
Very
much.
insightful information, and looking forward to this match tomorrow. It seems like it's already going to be a great match, and the friendliness that you guys expressed by having Lou on y'all's podcast and you coming on board of ours, it's fantastic, and this is what we strive to do with the mission that we took on as in starting this pod is creating more brand awareness and connecting more with the U.S. soccer fan base. And here you are, and we thank you for your time.
Just real quick question. I know you, Arnoldo and Alfred, you're in Houston, but where are the rest of you at?
I'm in Austin, Texas, in the capital.
Ah, okay.
And Edgar and I are in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm more on the Fort Worth side. Edgar's down in Arlington.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. Really appreciate it. And if you have any questions for anyone, you know how to reach us. And good luck tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jose. Likewise.
Okay. Have a good
Thank
evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That was awesome. He's
Yeah,
very
I love that.
insightful.
I got news for Dennis, man. We found a guy who has a nice voice just like him.
Yeah, the
There's
competition.
competition.
The competition. All right.
Hey,
Yeah.
don't forget, Dennis is not just the voice; he's the producer. He's got.
Chill out.
He's
chill
the
out,
host. He can host.
Chill out. Chill out. Hey, actually, hold on real quick. Shout out everybody who's watching, who was associated with Cincy Soccer Talk or watching from Cincinnati. Hopefully, y'all have enjoyed our show. Keep watching if you want, and flood the chat. Shout out Pedro, Libres y Locos from DFW. Let's go. Let's
Heck
go.
yeah, man. It's been such a refreshing feeling seeing different people get in the chat the last 2 days, and we're here for it. Hopefully it continues to expand, and once again, that was such an awesome conversation, very insightful. I was very impressed, and very impressed with what they got going on. It's like a big conglomerate of a soccer community and I didn't even know that a community that big already existed. But it doesn't surprise me that it comes from Ohio, and so nonetheless, it's a beautiful thing to have people like that come onto our show.
Yeah,
And
they have a
share that
ton
information.
of like Twitter accounts like about the team, not just them, but I've done some research over the last couple of days, and it feels like they've got a real nice presence online with talking about FCC. So kudos to them.
We've connected with a lot of communities over the years, right? I mean, you were on with the Orlando guys, right, Arnoldo, and I was on with the Miami guys last year. And I think out of all the fan bases we've connected with, they're the most organized. They're very well organized, and they're a big group. It was really impressive to see.
Yeah. It's setting the target for what we got to do on our end. So
Yeah, we could definitely learn a
step
lot
our
from
game
them.
up.
yeah, absolutely.
Somebody sponsor us so we can have more resources. Like actually,
Hey, yeah, I think we would have more resources if we wouldn't spend so much money on Tigres merc. Like,
dude, I'm telling you, you guys got to keep a tab of how much you spend in 1 year, 1 calendar year. I mean,
bro, I don't even want to know, bro.
Does my flight
you
next
have
week
to.
count? Does my flight next week count?
No, just merch, straight merch.
Okay, just merch. Okay.
And that's why I was very happy with the purchases I made to begin the year when I made it over. Like I think I landed on the 6th or the 7th of January in Monterrey. And right off the bat, I got the big jacket and the Adidas Originals jacket, and I was like, shoot, this is a big tab already, and like I'm only a month into the year. Like that's not even including the next 3 jerseys that are going to be coming out and hats that I'm going to be buying. So yeah, I think we could use more of our resources into researching how to get more sponsors onto the pod.
Overrated. I'm kidding.
Fellas, how much of this emotional train ride are we still riding from Guido Pizarro taking over yesterday?
It's gonna last a while, man. I mean, we're
Yeah.
gonna be fueled for a while. Honestly, I see this going at least 4 or 5 games, and then if the team gets on a roll and starts clicking, I think we're gonna carry it all the way into the championship.
Yeah. I had a very interesting conversation today. When I was at the gym, I ran into a Tigres fan that I always run into. We always chatted up, but then I also had a conversation with a guy from Torreon who was just stating the fact that his team is in a bad place. But the similar topic of conversation, bringing it back to Guido Pizarro, was the emotional spark that Guido Pizarro is going to inject into this team, even though we're dealing with some injuries, even though we're dealing with inconsistency of play on the field, a lot of roller coaster with some of the players' forms, and so I think that's the one thing that we can agree. We're not in a worse place. I don't know if we're necessarily in a better place. But I think emotionally, from the standpoint of moving forward, I think as a fan base we're in a great place.
But you could see it in the players also. Just from the photos I've seen on social media these last 36 hours, there's big smiles on their faces. Like there was guys who were coming out really serious out of the tunnel. Guys like Cordova, who now have giant smiles as they're coming out. I think it's a big boost in morale for most of these guys.
That picture that came out where they were carrying Carioca, like we haven't seen a picture like that in the last 6 months.
Yesterday, I was criticizing the CM of Tigres Twitter, and today I'm praising him for his messiness and capturing all those moments of happiness on the pitch as Guido Pizarro has taken over.
Maybe his lack of content was a result of that. Any pictures they got out of the training ground was nothing but sad faces before. So
yeah, I mean that sort of energy does rub off, man. I mean, if we were down, the fans were down, the players were down, and we can't expect the CM to be all giddy.
Me and Edgar were talking about it before we started the pod. How now we're thinking of going to the Austin game when a few weeks ago we were like, nah, we ain't paying for that game.
Yep.
What there's a specific topic, staying on the conversation with Guido Pizarro taking over, There's one specific topic that, not that I can't wrap my head around, but it more of a shock. And I don't know if it's because the combination of Paunovic himself as a coach and what he was looking to implement, and there was again more rumors. We knew that they were going to be coming out throughout the day, as you know, the conversation was going into what this move means for Tigres. They've been all over national media today and local media, but one of the things that I was sort of focusing on was the fact that Paunovic did not generally talk to its players. He used his assistant coaches and specifically Profe Ortega. And, big rumor is that, when there was disagreements, to not call them arguments, because we don't know if how certain this could be, or the information that has been rumored to be leaking out, is the fact that a guy of a caliber like Ortega, having been at Atletico Madrid, having so much success, and forming players and helping them reach top level physically, we would think that especially when Paunovic first arrived, that was one of the positives that we saw immediately, his influence on the players and the form that they were displaying with that high pressure. We talked about it, that anticipation and that willingness to, disrupt play on their opposite end of the field. And now as the season transition last season, and then as we began this season, there was sort of a lost focus on what Profe Ortega was bringing to the club. And then we started dealing with injuries. So I want to sort of drive a little bit of the conversation there. Obviously not so much with Guido, but what Profe Ortega meant, and then now moving forward with another fitness coach and the missed opportunity, maybe, if we want to call that, with Profe Ortega.
There was something interesting that Jose mentioned when he was talking about leadership, and he was comparing one player to Yedlin there, and he mentioned something real interesting to me. He said that you have to have interactions and connections first, right? And then you can get in people's faces and people will fear you. But it's funny that he mentioned connections first, and I think that's what failed with this whole coaching staff. There was never any connections, right? So how could you discipline players when players don't trust you, when players don't like you, when players don't love you, right? Tuca had a rapport with the players because he had earned their trust, right? He could get on them, chew them out, right? Because they knew that's tough love. They knew where he was coming from because he had built that chemistry with them, and that's where Pauno, I think, ultimately failed, right? He came in, he started to institute discipline via his staff and himself, but he never built any chemistry with these guys. He never connected with them. There was never any true interactions, and so players were not gonna go through walls, run through walls for him. Players were not gonna listen to him ultimately because there's no trust there. And so, you know, when you see Pauno, a lot of time, like lately, I've been basing how people would do with the squad on how they do, how well they interview with Pello Maldonado. Like, watch that dynamic. And so when Pello interviewed Pauno, that was a really stale,
Those are
really
tough to watch.
tough to watch, man. I mean, the guy was like, the impression you got is it's like watching paint dry, right? So you went from a guy like Siboldi, who is a club legend, who is warm, who is from a Latin American culture, who has connections already with these players culturally, to a guy who's from the other side of the world, and there's very little things in common. And so he never put that together. I think he never understood it. He never understood the fan base. And ultimately, I think that's why we ended up losing everybody. I think, Prof. Ortega probably wore these guys out, and they got tired. They got tired of the discourse, communication, and it just, it got flat. I don't think the team ever like turned on him purposely. I think it was dull. It was just a bad relationship.
It almost. Go ahead.
Speaking of Peyo, Juninho was very giddy today on their little live this morning.
Yeah, he shaved his head.
Well, and Pauno's gone. He doesn't have to roast him anymore.
Yeah, and it just sort of shows, Lou, everything that you just mentioned, that why maybe he had regular season success at Chivas, because there were much younger players that he could sort of control with discipline factors and push fitness over play. And Chivas has always been really known for that, and that's why I always mention that I always look forward to Chivas games, because you're always going to get effort out of Chivas, even if they're not good, and which opens up play for the opposing team. And when you have talent, in our case, it allows for more of a more fun game to watch. So it's a shame that happened, but like I said, I had that focus there with Profe Ortega, and like I said, a missed opportunity, because he's such a a big profile fitness coach in the soccer world, and we had him here, but I think we've had success. I think prior to him, the Portuguese, what was his name, Toja, if I'm not mistaken, was also very good. Bustos was really good, and again, I reemphasize through the docuseries and what the players mentioned when Diego Coca was here. They were loving what Bustos was doing, and he was available, and Guido Pizarro knew that and understood that, and he brought him on board. And again, we're moving forward. We're moving into a direction where I can't really truly say that we're in a much better place, but I think it can't get worse than where we were as far as the relationship that we had as a fan base with the coach, the relationship that was being displayed on the field and off the field between the players and the coach, and as well as even the board being involved. So not sure if you guys have any final thoughts there on Paunovic and Guido Pizarro taking over before we move into more specifics.
I think after this, initial phase where we are inevitably we have to talk about him. I don't think we're ever going to think about him again. I think that's going to be his legacy, is that he's going to be forgotten. He's a guy that 10, 15 years down the road we're going to be like, oh yeah, that guy. I think he's
An afterthought.
Yeah, he never made any kind of dent. He never made any kind of chemistry with the fans. I think he's going to be one of those guys that we're going to forget.
Yep. Anything else?
I do think that there is a right on cue. Right on cue.
Dude, you missed the entire preview of the CONCACAF.
Bruh. Leave work earlier. It's not that hard.
Our most loyal fan missed one of our better shows tonight.
Quit your job. I'm kidding.
If I need to write a note to your boss, let me know.
That's funny. No, I was gonna say it does feel like that this will be a long-term thing. I know that was kind of, emphasized at the press conference this morning, and I do feel that, because honestly, for everybody's sake, it kind of needs to work long-term, because if it doesn't work, well, Guido's gonna look bad, and then the front office they're all gonna be gone, because you've gone through what, 5 or 6 coaches in the last 2.5 years. You got to figure out
one of them worked and you got rid of them.
Exactly. So, I mean, this needs to be a long-term thing. You cannot give up on this Guido project after 2 seasons, for example. This needs to be at least 2-3 years, in my opinion.
Do we want to maybe move that around? Do we want to squeeze Guido Pizarro's press conference before we recap that other game out here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. We're on the subject right now, ish. So
okay.
That around real quick.
Give us your beautiful writing intro for that segment.
Absolutely. The Guido Pizarro press conference recap. This morning, the new head coach of Club Tigres made his first official appearance to the media since the club released the announcement. The news has made international headlines and sparked controversy amongst critics and reporters. But what did the former captain have to say about what came across as a spontaneous decision? Let's discuss.
I'm going to toss that over to Lou, because Lou was on top of his game today. You see, the one thing about Lou is that once he's going into episodes and he's making special appearances, he makes sure
Once
he
he
lets
comes out of the
everybody know.
shadows, once he comes out of the shadow realm, you mean?
It's amazing what a day off would do to a man, man. Refreshed, ready to go.
And so,
Hey,
Lou,
did you ask for today off like you said yesterday?
nice, bro. That's a miracle in itself. Lou's such a hard worker. Like he's working day and night, and he's always on call. For what it seems like. But Lou, you were following along the press conference today, and you were able to recap some of those statements that were being made and some of the questions that were being asked. So, what are some of the highlights and things that stood out to you from that press conference?
Yeah, so Culebro got asked about Pauno, like pretty much right off the bat. They said, "Hey, what was the reason?" And initially, he kind of tried to dodge the question, saying, "Hey, we evaluate our coaches every week, and there's a certain criteria that we follow, and this is we're doing this constantly. So this is not something new that we sat down Saturday night and evaluated him." So he dodged the question, but then a reporter came back one question later and says, "Well, give us that criteria that you follow." And he mentioned some really interesting things, which I think is going to be priorities for Pizarro. He mentioned that the team wasn't a protagonist, so that means letting other teams kind of control the pace, control possession, that sort of thing. That's how I understood it. And that word protagonism got mentioned multiple times during the presser. It kept coming up. So you can kind of start to see the direction the club wants to go in, right? They want a team that's, possesses the ball but attacks well, has plenty of shots on goal. I think that's one thing we lacked this year. Not very many shots and very few shots on goal. So therefore very few scoring opportunities. So that got mentioned. He also mentioned that players. There were multiple players not playing up to their potential, and so you could see, obviously, the horse in the room, the elephant in the room. Nico Ibanez not playing well, Antuna not playing well, and then several others who are basically not up to par. And then we had some last season too, so that got mentioned as well. And then it says that the team did not dominate a playing style, which I think that's been brought up in this pod up a ton of times, right? How many times have we said, "Hey, we keep flipping back and forth on what we want to do. We At this point we have no idea the system of play that he's wanting to implement." And so it's funny how a lot of the conversations we've had here, they were taking it into account too. And I think they just finally got fed up and said, "That's it. This team's going nowhere. We're cutting ties." From Pizarro, a lot of what he said, man, was music to my ears. I mean, he mentioned, I love these guys. These guys know that I love them, but the team is a priority. They know that I love the team more. And that kind of tells me, hey, we're buddies, but we're not buddies, right? He's drawing a line saying, hey, I know you guys, been knowing you guys, but we're gonna play the best 11. And later on, he got asked about his style of play, and he mentioned something very interesting. He said, I am going to reward the players who have the courage to implement my new system, which tells me, hey, the guys that are getting after it in practice, the guys that really understand his style of play, those are the guys that get priority. And so who knows how that ends up being, which 11, understand his system best, are able to implement it quickly. So we'll see in the upcoming games. He says he's going to be evaluating game to game, which most coaches do, obviously, but it'll be interesting how this team slowly evolves. We talked about on the pod last night how it's going to be a coaching by committee, sort of checking the direction in which they want to go, because this is not going to be something he can change overnight. And he mentioned it. He said, obviously it's going to take time, but he expects the team to change starting tomorrow. So what he's telling us is there's got to be a mental change with the guys, with the squad. And I think that's also important. It's kind of what we've been talking about, that shot in the arm, rally around the flagpole, let's go get it. So I think you can already see his vision, his leadership. He got asked, how do you feel to be retired? He said, oh, I'm calm, I'm fine. Like no emotions whatsoever, which tells me this is a guy who has been thinking about this a long time and would actually prefer to be coaching than be playing. So he's up to the task. He's ready to go.
Yeah, that was something that we heard, at the end of last season as the year was coming to an end, that there was talks about the renewals of contracts with some of these older players, and Guido Pizarro was the easy maneuvering as you were going to go forward with, because it was sort of expected that he was going to be the easiest transition to move forward and not necessarily offer a contract. And I think we all know, because he has been from the get go, especially over the last 3 years, a coach on the field for us throughout his tenure with our club, but more specifically these last 3 years where we've had rocky years, and he's been a mediator in that locker room between all these coaches. And so you sort of saw that coaching aspect already coming out. And I've said it a couple of times in some pod episodes. I think the older guys understand, at this point, like, they've made their money, they've won their championships in their hardware, and they know that the team needs a new type of leadership, not necessarily on the pitch itself. And Guido Pizarro is an exceptional leader and has been demonstrated every season. And so I think that they were looking, and I also speak about Gignac, and I think Gignac has, obviously more of an ego being a striker. He's obviously wanted to score more goals, and he knows that he wants maybe another 6 months, especially with the injuries. But I think with Pizarro, it was an easy adjustment to say, yes, I've been wanting to coach for a while. This is a perfect opportunity for me, and I'm ready to take that challenge, because, like you said, he's been looking forward more to coaching than playing, because it's been a little chaotic over the last couple of years, and guys who have won everything don't want to be part of that atmosphere. And you see it across many sports where players move on to other organizations, they get traded, and the club normally helps them out to move on somewhere, especially if the situation is chaotic. So we were there, and I think that Guido understood that very firmly, and it makes it easier to move forward with him.
Unless you're the Dallas Mavericks, but that's an exception. Sorry, I had
Somebody
to say it.
sounds hurt still.
He's gonna be hurt all season,
Bro, and Kyrie basically just tore his ACL tonight. So
especially when the Lakers win that chip.
yeah, bro.
We're gonna have to do a drinking game and take a shot every time you mention the Mavericks.
Ring the bell anytime I mention basketball.
It was Luis Quinones last season.
Right.
Now we're doing Mavericks now.
and Luca. I just want to comment. Obviously the whole conference, they try to stay away from discussing any details about Pauno or things like that. But I did like that you could read between the lines exactly what we were just talking about, what Lou was explaining as to why the main reason was that Pauno left, and it was because there was no connection with the team. Guido mentioned it, within his speech when he was talking about how he has that connection with his teammates, now his his boys basically, and that's something that was missing with Pauno. So I like that they didn't have to go into details about any frictions that went on or anything like that. It was just respectfully, there was just no connection there. The human connection was never there. And I did really like one of Culebro's response when he was actually defending Pizarro when they were asking about his experience. And, he pretty much flat out said, hey, I don't care if he doesn't have any experience. He has the preparation. Like that's, he in place of experience, here's all the preparation that he has. So he's ready. And I thought that was really, really good of him. Something that we obviously haven't had much interaction out of Culebro in the past. And maybe even some of those interactions have not been positive. But I felt like today's press conference, we saw another side of Culebro, and hopefully that means that, he's on board with this decision, because we all believe that this decision did not come directly from him. So it just means that hopefully, he's on board with this decision, and he's just, he's going to rally with everyone involved to make sure that this results in positive things for Tigres.
Just to add to what Alfred said, I thought that was like masterfully played by Pizarro, because Pello kind of threw that one out and said, "Hey, what do you say to the doubters who call you inexperienced?" And he was really humble about it. He said, "Hey, I'm going to be learning kind of week to week," and he did not try to defend himself in any kind of way. And that's when Culebro came in and stepped up and said what Alfred was saying. But that also shows me Pizarro's leadership, right? He didn't go on the defensive. He didn't try to talk too much. It just shows you that's a guy who's confident in his work and his preparation, what he's done, and he doesn't have to come out and defend himself. It's basically telling us without telling us, hey, week in and week out, you'll see it.
I got
You'll
it.
see what I can bring, and I thought
Yep.
that was really well played.
He has one of the most sought out leaderships. And you find this type of leadership to be very successful amongst companies, community
Industries.
groups. It's having that servant leadership. And Guido Pizarro is exceptional at that. And, a lot of the negatives that I've seen throughout the day on social media and like TV is like, how is this guy gonna tell his buddy Gignac that that he's not starting? Well, guys, have we watched some games? Like Gignac has been injured, so that's not even really like a true like argument to present. And second of all, there's nobody that understands more what making tough decisions than Guido Pizarro has been doing as being the leader of a bunch of what some people would call drama queens in a locker room of talented stars that everybody wants to play. And he's been that mediator through, like I said, many different coaches. I don't think it's going to be as difficult as people think it might be of telling Gignac or even like Nahuel. Why do we need to bench Nahuel? I mean, yeah, I get the youth minutes aspect of like having to include maybe Tapia, but I mean, it's redundant because it circles back to the conversation that Tapia might not even be our goalkeeper of the future because he's not because of the clauses that are in play of his contract between Querétaro and America. But I just don't see it as a tough decision in selecting some of these players. I think that the one tough decision that could be a possibility, but even then, like being healthy, I think everyone understands, especially with 2 months left in his contract, that Romulo and Hernando Gorreran are the starters in the midfield, and Carioca is going to be a complemented player and a guy that's going to be rotated as we get more matches.
And let's not forget, guys, that he also leads by example. He was the guy that pretty much changed positions throughout his entire career at Tigres to accommodate other players coming in and playing in his spot. He did that himself. Like he basically took himself out of the equation and said, I'll sacrifice myself. I'll learn this other position. I'll play somewhere else because that benefits the team.
Yep.
So, when he comes and tells these players, hey, I'm going to have to sacrifice you. You're going to have to move here. You're going to have to ride the bench. They're going to listen to him because he leads by example. He did that himself. So I see nothing but positive things coming out of this decision and this new leadership and Guido Pizarro as the head coach.
Yep, agreed. There's one thing also to point out about this press conference. Where was Gerardo Torrado?
In Spain.
Ese güey estaba en Cancún.
Who?
Arispe,
Who?
Arispe, has definitely fallen off in terms of reputation of being like a credible source.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, he was on that Solo Tigres space.
Yeah,
yesterday.
but
That's
for
all you
sure.
need to know.
But he still has, some aces under his sleeve at times, and he does provide factual information. And the number one, that's factual every season that ends up not being factual is Rayados Campeón. And anyway, so I still have like every time I follow him, I see his like tweets, I read his columnas. And I always take everything he says like with a 70 to 80% like validity of like what I'm reading, because again, his reputation has fallen off, especially after the Tuca incident, and what happened with the club and, being on Tuca's salary, and getting distributions there, or what the rumor is. Not making true accusations, it's just rumors, but funny though.
Guys, no chicharrón here. We don't do that here.
Yeah. And so, but one of the things he said yesterday is that he called his Judas Tigre, and he tweeted that Belko Paunovic was not going to be the only one moving on from Tigres, and it might happen in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner, and it just all signs points to Gerardo Torrado. The manifestation of Guido Pizarro being a head coach, Nahuel possibly being the assistant, and Gignac being the director deportivo or the sporting director, the GM, however you want to call it, on the soccer side. It's coming. It's manifesting, and things like Gerardo Torrado not being at the press conference, even Culebro having not spoken until yesterday at the practice and today at the press conference. It had been 3 months since he made an appearance and spoken to the press, and so those little things, it's just things to pay attention to. That maybe these moves were made with just placeholders, as we always wanted, and now it's coming to fruition with that possible rumor that came out a couple years ago with Guido, like I mentioned, being the coach, Nahuel possibly being an assistant, and Gignac being the sporting director or the GM.
Agree.
It's just
Phase 1 of 3 complete.
Yeah, and phase 1 of 4 on the not so positive side. One player is retired out of the big leaders.
The 4 pillars of the club.
Yeah, and I almost feel like it's got to be 5 now, Edgar,
I was gonna
because
say, yeah,
Aquino has to be thrown into that
Yeah,
mix
yeah,
too.
yeah,
for sure.
5. Yeah,
And we talked about it yesterday. I consider him, like, now that Guido's out, I think that Nahuel's clearly the number 1 captain, with Gignac being 2, and I think the third one, it's a
Aquino.
very good Aquino replacement there. Maybe even a possible Nando to groom him into that possibility. But Aquino walks amongst those guys and sits at that table with those legends as well. So, but things are moving forward, guys. Things are happening. Yeah, that's another thing. We saw Guido's final game without knowing it. I tweeted earlier today a highlight, and dude, like, the guy was all over the place on Saturday for 90 minutes, and then the next day becomes the head coach. Impressive.
Crazy.
well, that's a perfect segue into talking about the Necaxa game, right, Edgar?
That is correct. Necaxa versus Tigres recap. Saturday night, Los Incomparables traveled to Aguascalientes for match day number 10. Larcamón and his Rayos provided an intense and competitive match and nearly snagged the victory from Pauno's crew, but the boys buckled down in extra time and were able to secure the 3 points on the road. The goals for the evening were provided by Bruneta and Chuy Garza for the Tigres side, with the home squad's goal being provided by Agustin Palavecino. Did the Pauno era conclude on a high note?
No.
An interesting question. Like,
Yeah.
like his Pauno era concluded with him getting fired. Like,
After a win.
Thanks for
right?
that.
Like,
Couple of things. First, Alfred, shout out for spotting this guy out. I was set on the other guy, the number 10 guy. What's his name? Farabella? No, Farabella?
Paradela, creo, or something like
Okay.
something like that.
I was
No,
locked.
Palavecino. I think he's the better guy.
Okay, well,
that
I was
runs
locked in
the-
on number 10, and then you pointed Palavecino out, and that guy's good. That guy's made a good adjustment. Larcamón is making those boys play nice. Just a good game. I thought. I really thought it was a good game, and both teams had some good moments. Our defense was spectacular at times as well. Shout out to Joaquin. Shutting down the leading scorer, Diver Cambindo, and going body to body and punking him a little bit. And so, good match overall. Impressions, Lou, about that lineup that was selected. Obviously dealing with a lot of injuries. Antuna was inserted into the lineup. You've talked now. You made a few comments about Antuna being an important piece, possibly moving forward with Guido Pizarro, and just any other impressions of the lineup that was chosen.
Yeah, I gotta say, we got accustomed to wins even not being that exciting under Pauno, and I gotta say though, the positive coming out of that game was Antuna. I thought
Oh no.
I thought he was a lot better, man. A lot better
I agree with him.
than what we've seen, man. His ability to be able to enter into the box with pretty much at ease is encouraging to me, man. I know his crosses are still off, and I know his last decision, which is the most important, obviously, is still a little bit off. But man, if we can get a guy who continually makes that many entrances into the opponent's box, we're gonna be really good
He
because
hasn't.
Okay.
just the bulk amount of entrances is gonna lead to at least a couple goals per game. And
He
all we need now is Nico Ibanez to get hot, to get out of that rut, which it's gotta happen. It's gotta happen soon because it's important. With Gignac being injured and not gonna stay healthy at least during the regular season, we need Nico to step up. But man, it is encouraging to see, and I think a lot of these guys under Pizarro are gonna get a lot better, man. I'm just really optimistic about the future. Like I mentioned, it was mentioned in the press conference that a lot of guys were playing below their their
level.
expected level. I think Pizarro knows it, and he's gonna get working on a lot of these guys, and we're gonna see them play much better than what we've seen.
He has a
Okay. So
natural. I know you're going to shit on him, Alfred. So let me give him a
no, no,
little
no,
more
no.
positive praise here. He has a natural knack for being around the box in a good moment. Chicharito
Yes.
made a career out of that,
Yeah,
and Antuna, obviously not comparing, in terms of career, but Antuna just has a very easy way to be in the right spot and has even like a way, like as you said, entrances into the box. There was a moment there I was watching on TV Azteca, and he made a great play. Like I think somehow the ball like progressed. I don't know if he backheeled it to himself or he let it. He made a pantalla and it went through. And Martinoli was like, "Oh, Antuna!" He remembered how to play, and like it was just like a moment of like. He does have these moments where he makes it look really easy, but he's got that, Jurgen Dominitis, where he doesn't know what to do at the end of the box. But that's literally almost every Mexican winger, that has played
yeah.
and plays in our league. And so I think that, I'm with you, Lou. I think he had a good game. And we even mentioned that. I think that when he came off, the team sort of lost, some depth there offensively. But now it would turn it
Okay.
on to the
But
negative side.
hold on, Alfred. One more comment before we let you stomp all over him. There is something. I didn't see it this game, man, but the game before where he came in and he played a little bit at the 9 for just a few minutes. He has this killer instinct. You mentioned his movement, Arnoldo, which I think you're onto something there. He does have really good movement inside the box, but he's got a little bit of a killer instinct, man. Like I know we all think he's a clown and he's got these cornrows and he's like Afro one day and he's all over the place, and so we don't take him serious. But dude, like there was sparks of a killer instinct, dude. So if Nico doesn't end up working, like honestly, I think we could play him at the 9 and he might be something. He might be something. I don't know if we convinced Alfred, but dude, that's just what I saw. I just saw
Nah, get ready
a
for
hint of killer in him.
get ready
All
for
right,
the
Alfred, kill him.
shit show
Slay him.
starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, guys. No, I want to settle y'all down, guys. I need you to like, drop it a little bit,
That's
just
how
a
I
notch.
feel. That's how I feel. All of y'all about with Linus.
Man,
No,
the
because
Kool-Aid's so
no, because
good, Alfred.
here's what you guys need to, need to understand. What is it that you're comparing him to?
Nothing.
You're comparing him to like literally the worst, possibly signing that we've had in the last 10 years as a
He's
result of
not
his
Ramirez level.
performances over the last 6 months, right? Like he's been that bad that one good game, I'm not going to say he had a bad game. No, not at all. He had a good game. One good game. Now y'all are praising him like,
And
he's
an
some type of
assist.
like hidden gem.
It's because he was dead, Alfred. He was dead, and now he's
No,
alive.
I agree. So
Anything's going to stand out because he hadn't done anything.
exactly. So
He
what I'm
was
trying to say is
flatlining,
that
and then it showed like a little spike in the heart monitor, and we were like, whoa, he might.
right. So, but I want to settle y'all down because now you're talking about Lou. Well, if Ibanez doesn't work out, now Antuna's gonna be Guignac's replacement. Come on, like settle down, guys. Let's not get carried away. Okay, he had a good game, and I agree he has a knack to find the ball, like literally, or the ball finds him. It's just that he obviously has not shown at Tigres to be able to, produce when he has these opportunities, except for, maybe this one game where he actually had a couple of good, opportunities that he created, right? But I just want to settle y'all down. This was just one game. What happens if next game he's a shit show again? So, like, let's just cool down, guys. The expectation needs to be higher. Our expectation cannot be one good game against Necaxa, and now we're praising the guy like he's, the next Michael Jordan. Like, please, we need this out of him the rest of the season. Like, if this is gonna be the new Antuna, perfect. But we need this consistency, and we need this out of him the rest of the season because that's how much he cost to us. He cost a lot of money.
But that's where I also like. It's not that it's really defending him, but that's what we need of all of our Mexican wingers. Like he's just the most recent signing, and we expect that to carry over what he did at Cruz Azul. But if you even go back prior to that, he had a bad stint at Chivas. With the LA Galaxy, he found some form, but he had Zlatan Ibrahimovic, so that made things easier in the MLS. And so consistency is, you're right. He's a guy that needs to be held to a higher standard because he's been a national team player and whatnot, but so are the other wingers. So I think that
I agree.
That's
and I do want to say that I am actually going to take a step back from all this bashing Antuna, and same with Nico. Now that Pizarro is at the head of the helm, like, I think it's a clean slate for everyone. For everyone, and everyone deserves, an opportunity. And obviously, under this new leadership, I'm pretty sure, Pizarro is going to instill confidence in these guys that they've been lacking out of the leadership that they had before. So hopefully that brings out the best out of them. And with Ibanez, I mean, I don't think it has been that much as much as luck. Like, he's just been,
Salado, bro. I mean, that game showed it. I mean, he's there. It's just a matter of time before he scores. And
so I'll make a prediction. I say Ibanez scores tomorrow, bro.
Off of an Antuna assist?
No.
Let it burn.
That chat's gonna be lit, bro.
Release the Kraken.
Oh man, Edgar. Any other impressions from the Necaxa game? Any other player that might have stuck out to you, or things that you saw that were positives?
Not really. I mean, I think you guys covered everything. One thing we haven't covered yet, if you guys hadn't heard, I was late to the party, but Nahuel's red card in the match was reversed today, so that's a positive.
That's true.
Yeah, that needed to
Parra had a good game as well.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Go
I
ahead.
was super upset that he came off because, one, you want to get the most amount of youth minutes you can get, and he fulfills 100%. But also, he looked like he wasn't a 20-year-old. He looked like he had some rhythm. He knew what he was doing. He had a couple moments here and there where he lost the duel here or there, turned the ball over, but like nothing too crazy. The game was a little bit chaotic, so it was fine.
Yeah.
I've been impressed with him the last couple games. I don't remember, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember Fierro having, games
Fierro
like
had
this.
one really good game, and then the next game, he shit the bed.
Yeah, but it's like he never found a consistent rhythm. I think we're starting to see that with Parra for now. And he's kind of has to because of the injuries too. Like, there's not a ton of other options right now with Gori and Romulo being out. So long may it continue, because it would be great to just have, not just a warm body, but, somebody who is doing good. I was, pleased with him. And again, we've been talking about it all season, but Chewy, man, like the goal, just kind of the cherry on top of what was another strong performance for him.
Yeah, and
What else can you say about him, man? He's been excellent.
It's his coming out party, man. And you know, statistically, it's also been proven. Status Kicks released the top 10 fullbacks this season, and Chuy Garza was in the number 5 spot, and surprisingly, Francisco Venegas was in the 3rd spot there. So I think that's just going to be more of a regular thing. I think the expectation is that Chuy Garza, I think this season he's going to possibly earn maybe a future call up to the national team, even though we don't like El Tri at Tigres because of the injuries that it produces for both squads. But ultimately, he's a very hardworking player. He's someone that you want to root for because he's a Regio. He's from Monterrey. He's a Tigres fan. He saw the Lucas Lobos era. He saw the being in the academy, seeing the coming out party and the success that Gignac and the rest of the team legends and all the other players that were here until he made his debut. And now he's here. And that left back position surprisingly is his. And I think that by the end of the year, once Aquino, retires, because that's probably the expectation. I really doubt that Aquino moves on to another squad and continues to play. I think, at 35, he will end his career being at Tigres when his contract ends in December. And then you got Chuy Garza to move, over to that right side. And then now you have a left back to seek and in the Liga MX, or a potential maybe foreign spot, but realistically it'll be a Mexican spot there that you can look for and come in and play at that left back position. So shout out to Chuy Garza, and that goal is just a reward and an indication that he's been there, he's been pushing for that moment, and here it is.
You know what else kind of surprised me about the last couple of days? The CONCACAF pregame press conference was today. And guess who was the player that they chose for that? It wasn't, Carioca, wasn't Nahuel. It was Chuy. Yeah. So for him to have that, I think kind of shows that, like, not only is this his coming out party, but like he knows that he has a lot more responsibility on the team. And I think that's great because it just gives him higher confidence to, feel like that he is a big part of what we've got going on this season, and helps to explain, the success that he's had so far.
They don't bring backups to press conferences. It's starters. So now he's being considered that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
great head on his shoulders, man. He's a kid that has his priorities straight.
Yes, he does.
I don't know if you guys watch Bayo with Isiordia, but one thing he mentions a lot is how many times are these guys changing hairdos before games? Because he says he looks at that a lot, because if all they're thinking about is their hair, then they're not worried about the game. And Chuy Garza has the same haircut he's had since he was in the youth academy, man. I mean, it just tells you the kid's focused, the kid knows what he wants to accomplish, and he's doing it. I think he's gonna Pizarro's probably gonna shape him into one of the future leaders down the road.
Yep. What a moment, man! Being a fan and living that dream, playing your profession and doing it at the team that you grew up loving. So that's that's something that you got to root for as a fan of Tigres. And we typically have one, sometimes two academy players that make a good run with the first team. We've seen it with Dueñas, we've seen it with Pilotito Jimenez, even Pulido for moments there.
Viniegra,
being the starter on the championship team. All those guys at the time, man, from 2011, 2013, a lot of those guys were national team players, and we had a really good youth academy production out of those, out of the system, out of the farm system, which I know Edgar has been pushing. And I think it's time to send a letter, Edgar, with your great writing. We got to send a letter to push the academy system more at Tigres, especially with the new training grounds being developed and expanded.
Yeah, definitely.
We do have a question.
All right.
In the chat about tomorrow. Who do we think should be playing in midfield?
I wanted to ask. No, I would say Carioca and Bigon, and the only reason for that is because we need to make. What if Parra gets injured? He's our only guy giving us minutes in the league. I would save him for Querétaro.
I just think Bigon just is not disciplined enough to be in that midfield.
Yeah.
My concern is they have weapons like Evander. They have guys who, for one, tend to swarm. They show a 3-5-2, but they play kind of like a 3-4-3 really. And so they tend to overload that midfield, that middle third. And so you're going to have a guy he has, some defensive prowess and is disciplined. I think just Bigon tends to gravitate more towards the attacking third, and that kind of would worry me.
But Bigon also has the experience, I mean, of playing these tournaments and away games, internationally. But this would be his first game in a Conca, and then on top of that, away. Like, I don't know if I trust the kid yet.
Second game.
Yeah, Fierro got roasted. I mean, we saw that Fierro got roasted against Columbus. So I definitely understand your concern. I just think Parra has a little bit more technical ability. It just seems to me. I mean, we're working off a very small
sample
window. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think the starters, if you have to, ask me game time decision and it's happening in 30 minutes, I'm going with Parra and Carioca. I think that if you pair Carioca and Bigon in that midfield, you give up a ton, especially neither of them are like defensive specialists per se. I think that obviously Carioca aging and playing, differently, as of recent, and also not being in form. He hasn't really played much. And to throw him out there with a guy like Bigon, who's not necessarily a guy that you can count, for anticipations and really, get after it. He's more of a, pressure the ball, but at a higher pressure, being a disruptor closer to goal. And you also throw in the fact that we're not deep right now. And I think that Bigon coming off the bench at least gives us a different way to approach that game if we were to get in a pickle in that first leg. So I think that I do share your sentiment, Alfred, that, more so the risk aspect of having this kid being injured. But I mean, he's 20 years old, 21 years old. Let's get out and get it. We wish to be that young and run like that.
You guys have better memory than I do. Wasn't there a game where Angulo played as center defensive midfield?
If he did, it wasn't like he started there. He was probably
no. But he's been used there. Like, I would even trust more bringing in Purata with Joaquim and then pushing up Angulo with Carioca.
I don't know about that.
I mean, I trust Angulo at the CDM. I would trust him, but man, I do not trust Purata, dude.
No, absolutely not.
Especially against the two guys that they have, Denke and.
Well, if you ask Peyo, if you listen to Peyo and Juninho's this morning, they talked about that, and he specifically asked Juninho, like, who would you go with after Joaquin and Angulo, and out of Tercero, Purata, and whoever's left, and he said Purata.
He's high on him for some reason. I don't know why.
Did he say that just because he played in the MLS? But the guy's been I mean, let's just call it how it is, man. He's been a scrub at Tigres for the longest. He had a good time at Atlanta.
Well, he obviously played with him. He knows him well from the training ground as well. And so his comments were specifically that, he's really good with the ball at his feet.
Yeah, he did play center defensive mid. I do remember he scored like a goal behind midfield, like at the U20s. I don't know if it was in a final or a semifinal. But I mean, again, it goes back to the form aspect, bro. I really don't, trust the fact that, I don't think it's going to be like a super tough game. I think if anything, it's going to be, a good matchup. And I think that the emotional spark is what gets us through. But, anything can happen. As they were, Jose was talking about it. It's early in the season for them. So, they're still trying to gel. Though I do believe that you got to go. Just knowing Pizarro, he's going to go with a team that he can trust out as the starting 11.
Yeah.
So great question. I don't know if Dennis, you got another pairing there, or Edgar for the question that was asked about the pairing for tomorrow.
I mean, do you want my real answer? Or do you want me to troll?
The real answer.
Well, the real answer is Para and Carioca. But my troll answer was going to be Pisuto, and Lord knows who.
Oh my God,
man, Dennis, we're a serious podcast, man.
Sorry, no chicharron.
What did you turn into David Molina or what?
No.
I mean, and that's it. We got three options. So it's either
Yeah.
it's either Parra and Carioca, Parra and Bigon, which
That would be the least
Nah, you gotta give it to
least
Carioca,
feasible.
man. He gets the nod for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or Carioca and Bigon.
Unless he runs
Okay.
like a 4-1-4-1 and you have, I don't know, you have Carioca in front of the back four, and then you just try
So
to
we
overload with 2 number 10s or something.
let's continue to predict that line. We got Nahuel at goal. We got Aquino,
Backline stays the same.
Yeah.
Joaquim, Angulo, Chuy Garza.
Yep.
Right.
Consensus, everybody,
Yeah.
Carioca
Yes.
and Parra in the
Carioca.
middle. And then up top or in front of them, Bruneta and then Nico Ibanez. And then you got the wings. Linus is out.
Antuna
Antona,
Antuna,
and
and
Cordova.
Marcelo.
Chelo Flores, or Cordova.
I
I
think
think
Pizarro's
Cordova.
going to go with Cordova.
Yeah.
Cordova. Yeah.
He said it. You could read it between the lines in his press conference when he was talking about. He actually mentioned these words. He said certain players that were not getting the confidence from the previous
Yeah.
leadership.
Bro, he was
You know,
talking about superstar Antuna, bro.
Oh no, he was talking about Cordova and Carioca, bro. That's who he was
Yeah,
talking about.
I think Cordova gets the nod. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm gonna be the dark
Alfred.
horse here, and I'm gonna go with Chelo and Antuna as the wingers.
Or it might be
Repeat
like Dennis said, you know, he might go with Chelo and Antuna, and then a double tandem of Cordova and Bruneta in that
But
4-1-4-1.
you run out of options though, because then you got to pull out Bruneta or Nico, one of those.
or one of the center defensive mids.
Yeah,
if
you'd
you
have
wanna
to
go
pull
through.
out Para or Vigon.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do
Carioca.
that.
No,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm calling right now. Chelo Flores and Antuna as the wingers.
Okay.
Roger that. I'm with Alfred, so put me down on the Alfred side on that one.
Or maybe
Okay.
it's Chelo and Cordova, and Antuna's the one that comes off the bench.
No, Antuna's gonna get the nod.
Yeah, I think it's the natural spot. You know, one of the things that I saw, Tom Harrison, that's a name that you know, Lou. I stumbled across his tweet, and my first defensive reaction was like, "Far away, Arnaldo, Tronaldo." And then, I read the entire article and I saw where he was coming from, and I reflected more. And one of the things that I saw from his analysis of his previous tweets, Tom Harrison has been covering Liga MX for a long while now, and he does exceptional analysis and breaking down lineups and stats and just different facets of the game. And one of the things that he had like a heat map of where each team in Liga MX plays through the most and where they played through the less. And guess what side we played through the most?
The right side.
Yeah, the right side. The right side tucking in.
Yep.
Linus and Aquino have been on fire.
Yeah, so that's why I do think that he pushes Antuna there to continue, and I'm sure statistics and analytics also are a big factor, and especially with younger coaches. So I'm sure Guido probably aligns a little bit on that side. So having come across that, and that's why I'm sticking with Antuna, being the starter at that right winger position.
No, I agree.
He also put out a really good article, just to plug him, regarding Romelu Zwarg and why he thinks it's not a good fit.
Yeah, that's the one I came across. That's why
I don't necessarily agree with him.
Yes,
but it was really interesting because he's a stats guy. He's a big stats guy, so
it's a strong argument. It really is.
It really is. It really is.
And I think as a fan base, we knew that, right? Like, because everybody automatically assumed with the possession style game that where was Romulo going to fit? And one of the things I'll read it to you, and like, this is great insight. Just give me 1 second.
He's just for audience who might not know who he is. He's ex scout and analysis guy for Orlegui Sports back when they were still good, Santos Laguna. So he's a polished guy. He's really
absolutely. He knows exactly what he's talking about. So I ran across the tweet, Lou, and so his quote tweet was, assuming that part of the motivation for making Guido Pizarro DT is to recreate the Tuca Ferretti style and success. The Romelu signing looks even worse now. And I said, what's the analytics say about the games played so far by Romulo? It's a small sample size, but just with some basic numbers, we can see how different Romulo is to Carioca. Romulo's averaging 21.5 passes per game. Carioca was at 57.5 last season. On the end, bro, like that's that like was so impressive to me. At the end of his career, like double that. And then, but obviously it's a small sample size, right? But Romulo's tackles plus interceptions are nearly 5.5 per 90. Carioca makes around 2.
Yeah.
And
he's
then,
a disruptor. He's a different type of player.
And then that's one of the things that when I said that, one of the things that I noticed as well is Romulo, when he has played, has been higher up the field as opposed to getting in between center backs. Interested to see how he fits under Guido. And then he goes, yeah, it will be very interesting to see what Guido attempts with the squad. You'd assume he's been strongly influenced by Tuca, but sometimes coaches create different teams to the ones they played in.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with Pizarro obviously being a DT now, and then our head coach, and Carioca possibly leaving, I would go for Palavecino from Necaxa. Like, I was that impressed by him.
Yeah, he's good. The only thing with that is we got Nando there.
You know, honestly, Bello hinted that possibly we could move to 5 in the back, and when he mentioned it, I was kind of disappointed to hear it, even though you guys know that I'm a big back 5 guy, but I was disappointed because I was like, oh man, that means we either got to play Purata or Diego Reyes. But now that I'm thinking about it, dude, Romulo's deep. I mean, the guy is basically a defender who plays in the midfield, and so you could drop him deep. He gonna pair up really well with Joaquin and Angulo, and now you let Trigarza and Aquino roam free. I mean, that 3 in the back would be
and bro
major shutdown.
And it gives you options too, because then you need a little bit of a different style approach. You can sub out Aquino, flip Chuy Garza, bring Diego Lainez to the left side at the wingback spot.
Yep.
Like, it gets interesting. I did see Pello mentioning yesterday about the back line of 3, and I saw some I forget who tweeted out today, but they also plays Romulo in that spot coming in between, and I think that's what I would like to see, even though he's played higher up the field, and when he's played with Nando, those in a small sample, Nando was the one getting back there and coming out of the back with the ball, and I think that's just because he has a much better technical ability than Romulo. But I think with time and Guido Pizarro, especially now the head coach, I think that can be very developed and turn into an amazing center defensive mid.
Yeah.
So
exciting times ahead, man. I think Pizarro is gonna have the brain to kind of put it all together for us.
Last thing before we go, because it's getting late, fellas. Tigres Femenil, I would say strong performance. Missed a lot of chances.
Yeah, they should have won like 6-0.
Yeah,
seriously.
Absolutely. Jenny Hermoso missed a couple. Tembi is looking more and more Lou and Alfred like Clever Boas to me.
And I can't figure out if that's a compliment or a diss, dude. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Which Clever Boas?
Well, that's where I'm at, bro. Like, I don't mean it with any disrespect. I really think that she's a really good player, and so was Clever, when he was around. Yeah. And he scored some goals, and like Clever would take off just like Tembi would take off and be 1-on-1, and the ball was going in the stands. With Tembi is going off to the side. So she creates so many opportunities for us, and sometimes she gets a little selfish, but I think decision-making wise, she that's the next element and her level up that she needs to improve. And I think at that point, like, she clearly is top 3 player in the league after Ovalle and, maybe, one of the America players, maybe like Luber or something. But I think that she gives us a lot, but also takes away a lot. And you see that through opportunities created and, chances missed by Tigres Femenil. But a positive result, 2-0. I think Pedro Loza is doing some really good stuff at Tigres Femenil. It's more evident that it's a more exciting game to watch than last season under Mila Martinez and the previous season when they won the championship. He's definitely trying. Stephanie Mayor, man, like, she just caught a new wind of play, but playing that defensive mid spot. that even Alexia Delgado is going to the bench now and being substituted out, and Mayor's being left on as a defensive mid. So I think that the selection has been splendid. And then to add on top of that, Lou, and anybody else who watched the game, Alfred, I'm not sure, Dennis, I know Edgar didn't catch it, but the persistence, right? You got Greta out, who was your left center back starting, Aaliyah Farmer, and a great signing, both injured with the national team. And you would think Ferral would go back to the center back spot, and she stayed at the right back spot, and he flipped Anika Rodriguez to the left back spot, and he went with Ana Seiza and Natalia Collin, who I think Natalia Collin had a great game as well today. So I mentioned it a couple episodes ago where, even though we are suffering injuries and we're not at full strength, I really believe that we're not in a very bad spot, because it's given now the chance to Natalia Collin, who, some of you guys have pushed to get more playing time. Now she's going to get it. And especially with Ferral being the right back, position.
Right center back.
First of all, great win, because Chivas always gets up for us. And a lot of their purpose is just to frustrate us, to disrupt us, to try to shut us down by playing very aggressively, very physical. And so to be able to get a 2-0 win is really impressive. It doesn't surprise me that we started out so slow and so bad. There was just so many bad habits that were formed under Mila that needed to be broken. And this due to visa issues and work related visa stuff, this coach wasn't able to get any kind of preseason with the team, and was late coming in. I think he was several weeks late coming into the team. So it was to me, it's just only natural that we were going to have such a slow start. But I think this team is going to end with a bang, dude.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't see anybody stopping us. This team is going to be really good. Even with the injuries, we're still looking very dominant. And it's, you can see the progression slowly. His style is being implemented. Players are starting to learn and understand what he wants to implement, and they're taking it into account. And we're getting players playing better now that were completely lost under Mila. Natalia Collin, for example, who I think is a fantastic player, has a great future ahead of her. And La Chata Hernandez, as much as I don't like discussing her, has been great with that doble pivote. Now you have two really amazing distributors, right? With Mayor and her in that central mid area. Like, you got two really great passers who are going to alleviate a lot of the workload that Ovalle last year was having to do all by herself.
And
So it's exciting.
Another player, though, too, Lou, that gets thrown in that mix and took a lot of criticism, especially the last 2 seasons, Jenny Hermoso, also finding a new way of playing as well. And I think that, naturally she was gravitating towards, a deeper role with Mila. And I think that, having, Mayor and Alexia behind them, and even having the flexibility to even drop back when needing to, and Mayor stepping up higher up the field. And, she had some really good passes. She picked up the assist off of the amazing goal by Ovalle tonight. And so, again, Jenny Hermoso, the type of play that we expected, and now really picking up. And, I think that you can find positives all over the field. Tatiana Flores got playing time today. Oh, perfect timing. Trigger. Read my mind. Tatiana Flores. Jennifer, another goal scored. And then she's a distributor, bro. Like, she's not just a box player. Like, that's what I'm saying. We're not in a bad spot, because you got Ana Diaz, with the Mexican national team analysis that Televisa or TUDN has. Like, you got Henry Martin in there to beat up the defenders. That's what Ana Diaz does. And then you could bring in this swift, creative player like Jennifer to come off the bench. You know that she can score goals, because that's what she was brought in for. But she can create play as well. And, you had Tatiana Flores, who's a traditional striker, but she was playing out wide. Fer Elizondo even got some minutes today. So that's what this new coach is bringing to the table, is re-inspiring some of these players that, were lost under Mila Martinez, and even prior back to Moscato, to find a new role, especially with the injuries that are happening or have happened.
And when we get back the Mari Carmen Reyes and all that, man, this team is going to be unstoppable, bro. It's really promising.
And
sorry, Dennis, to interrupt. If you guys haven't watched that Jackie Ovalle goal do yourself a favor.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It is out of this universe, man. It is unbelievable. What a
As Streaker said,
unbelievable.
I don't even know what to call it. Is it an inverted scorpion, a reverse scorpion? Like, oh my
God,
god,
what
it
a
was
player, dude. What a player.
Dude,
Dude,
and you know the
Unbelievable.
awesome part about it? In that same goal, Cookie Silvera scored not similar, but in a very
no. This
awkward.
tops Cookie Silvera's goal, bro.
No,
Like,
I know, but I'm talking about just the awkward / creative way to score that goal.
Yeah.
In the same goal that was scored when Cookie Silvera scored off against Pumas. I was like, that's what immediately thought. I was like, that goal, has a knack for taking some sweet goals.
It's a stroke of genius, bro. You know how there's like genius musicians and scientists? Jackie Owaye is one of those.
magic,
What a magical player, man.
magic. I
To
love
have
that.
the guts to do that too. I mean,
we need to put pressure like on social media. Like, this needs to be nominated for Puskas.
even though technically I got corrected earlier, the men have Puskas now, the women have the Marta. So she needs
Oh,
to be
really? That's
nominated for the
awesome.
Marta. For
Oh,
the Marta.
yeah.
And yeah, let's
Okay.
get a push on it, Alfred. Let's get it going, man.
All right.
Nice.
What were you
I-
gonna say, Dennis?
I love that y'all mentioned that like we're in a good spot right now and that there's so much more to come because really, this is so cliche, I know, but you want to be peaking in April and May. And especially for this team with what's happening in May,
Oh yeah.
a potential, long run in
CONCACAF.
the Liga, but especially that Conca semifinal when you have it at home, everything to play for. Hopefully you have Mari Carmen back or some of the other stars back by then too. I mean, that's when you want to be peaking, and we're trending up towards that right now. So
I think it should be the main focus for Tigres Femenil, winning that cup, that CONCACAF Champions Cup. And not that we can't win the Liga MX, but I think with all the injuries and, this team, like, we're looking at a team that's progressing and going and trending upwards. But by the end of next season or the middle of next season, when we get Mari Carmen Reyes back, like Lou mentioned, and then we have Farmer back and Greta Espinosa, and we have the current squad. Like, that's going to be fascinating because it's like now you're going to have such a deep team, and then now you're going to have this coach having coached for more time, and so implement what he's been doing and bringing out and polishing some of these players' level to continue to ascend. I'm looking forward to that, but that's why I mentioned that the CONCACAF is, in my opinion, the number one priority. It gives you the first stage to win it, obviously being the first one, and then continuing to expand that brand with the NWSL teams on there as well. And so it's just set up for a nice finish if the Amazonas want it.
And quick note about that. Obviously, we'd get into the Women's Club World Cup, but they just announced recently that got pushed back to 2027. So it's not going to happen next year because I think FIFA's struggling to get sponsors and all that stuff, which, I mean, do we expect anything more from FIFA? No. So.
Yeah, it's definitely expected, to say the least. But overall, great game tonight, and again, trending upwards. So we're climbing up the standings, and that's what we need. And as we get into some of those tougher matches ahead,
just want to say
our
one
moods
thing
have
before
been
we
lifted.
go.
What's that?
Go ahead, Lou.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I know we get a lot of trolls coming our way talking about Tigres, Equipo Chico, and this and that, and we don't care. Obviously, we don't care what they got to say. But I've been watching a lot of MLS just to kind of scout the teams that we're, going to play in these tournaments coming up, and almost every time that Tigres gets mentioned, the word giant gets associated with it. And
Mexican Giant. Yep.
and we're turning into a, I'm not gonna say the word, but we're turning into an important institution, man. And I think hopefully our front office realizes that and we start acting accordingly. And best of luck to Guido in this new project.
What do I always say?
When you're big,
When you're big, you're big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we make
Fellas?
predictions for the week?
Yeah. Tomorrow
And Friday, and now we can do the.
What you
next
got?
week.
What you got?
Me? Tomorrow 1-1. because I mean we don't know what to expect, how the boys are going to play tomorrow. But getting an away goal is a must. And then on Friday, 2-0. Querétaro sucks.
Alfred?
I say tomorrow we win 2-1, and on Friday, man, I'm so confident right now.
Big
On
result.
Friday, 3-0.
Bro, the stadium's going to be bouncing on Friday, bro.
The only thing with that, it's a 7:00 game, bro.
Don't matter. No, bro.
It's
Everybody's
Orca.
so
It's gonna be electric.
Friday. On Friday, 7 on Friday. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
everybody's going to be asking for the,
They are.
Chilango Friday.
Bro,
Jeez.
the vibes are going to be so good on Friday.
Okay. What you got, Lou?
I'm going 0-0 tomorrow and 3-0 on Saturday against Querétaro.
Right. Okay. Edgar?
2-0 tomorrow, 3-0 against Querétaro.
Ooh, I like you, Edgar.
I'm going 2-1 tomorrow and 2-0 on Friday.
Nice.
So, everybody, man, you know what we should have done, Dennis? And I was going to bring it up to you. We should have done like a check-in of everybody watching today again. We got to start seeing where everybody's watching us from.
I put it's in the ticker. I said,
Oh.
let us know where you're listening from or watching.
Yeah,
from.
some people might not be reading that, bro.
Nobody reads that, bro.
I don't read, bro.
Well, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, lo agüitaron, man. Come on, man.
Let us know.
Don't
Let
do
us
our
know where you're
prediction
listening
like this.
from. Let us
The
know.
irony we don't read when we're only on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
When we were just talking about reading an article, like
Last thing, hopefully that draws some people to let us know where they're listening to. Alfred, do we got any from the vault moments?
I did. I was actually gonna skip on them, but yeah, I got them. Hold on.
Real quickly, so people can check in where they're listening from. Oh, give them some
Sure,
time. Be
sure.
brave and put in the comments where they're listening from. We had Alaska yesterday in the house. San Nicolas. Obviously
Dallas
the
tonight,
Texas
DFW.
cities. And yeah, DFW tonight. Cincinnati.
So-
I'm sure.
17 years ago on March 1st, and it was March 1st, 2008, was when Lucas Lobos scored his first goal as a Tigre. It was in a match against America, and we won 3-0
PK.
with Hugo Sanchez, Lucas Lobos, y La Gata Fernandez scoring.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's his first goal out of 68 goals that he scored at Tigres. Next throwback. February 28th, 10 years prior, we had Rafael Sobis with us, and he scored a goal, a banger against Pumas at El Volcán. And then also, well, a lot of people talked about it on social media. Usually Bello always reminds us. 5 years ago from that goal of Nahuel in Conca, where, we were pretty much eliminated up until that 94th minute. It came off a cross of
Edu Vargas.
Edu Vargas, right, on a set piece, right? And we were able to win that match against Alianza. And that took us then to the, obviously to the Club World Cup later.
That was one
So
thing
that
that
was-
I always was at a crossroads during that time is I wanted Edu Vargas to shoot more free kicks for us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then for the older people, 25 years ago, February 28th, was when the whole situation with Donizete and the false
6-3
signature
game.
came out. So, and what happened with that was that, apparently his contract, either his contract or his resignation with his prior team was like falsified, one of those things. And then, so basically, there was games that in which obviously he had scored that were pretty much erased off the board. One of those being the Clásico, which we had won 6-3 at El Tec.
Yeah, basically any match that he played in during that run.
That he scored in, no?
No, it's any game that he played in.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because he had it was basically a double contract incident where he signed with us, but he was technically,
Still a player somewhere else, and they had like falsified, like he had already
that
they
he
blame
like.
they blame the secretary on that one.
Yep.
Yeah, and crazy because that was a really good team. I think that drew us
Oh, yeah.
back. And you had Diablo, you had Luis Hernandez, you had Donizete, you had Joaquin Del Olmo, Ramon Ramirez.
And so taking you back to that one of those games that was canceled, which is the most important one to us, the Clásico Regio 61, where we won 6-3 at El Tec. Yeah, I mean, and this just, man, the players that we had. For Tigres scored Ramon Ramirez, Donizete, El Tato,
Tato Noriega, bro.
Noriega, Saavedra, Núñez, Claudio Núñez, and there was an autogol. So, like, oh my God, we had like an amazing team back then, bro.
Yeah,
That team was
absolutely.
electric, man. They were
Yeah,
fun to watch.
no, absolutely.
Yep.
We still got to do a rankings of a bracket style of the teams. We got to actually break them down because that's one of that team needs to be in the conversation.
Definitely. Even though they didn't win anything.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Back-to-back pods, back-to-back Lou appearances, back-to-back great time, back-to-back smiles all over the pod. New life, more life is what
Guys,
we got
do we
going
want to thank Culebro? He fired
No.
Mila and Pauno for us.
No,
No,
thanks.
I heard they went above Culebro on this one, on the Pauno one.
Well, whoever it was, they listened to our prayers and they got rid of Mila and Pauno.
El desayuno was on Cemex's dime.
That's great. All right, fellas. Until next time, thank you everybody who tuned in tonight. We'll see you next week for another episode of the La U Times podcast. Thanks,
Arriba
everybody.
la U.
Peace.
Follow us everywhere. Bye bye.